Hey guys, it's your favorite Overwatch show, Ruptured Rectum Randall, and I'm gonna break down everything there is to know about the hero formerly known as McCree.
The name's
Because Blizzard understandably renamed the flagship Clint Eastwood cowboy hero in an effort to avoid any further sexual-related controversy after the porn star Cassidy Cole. In this video, I'll briefly cover the basics, the different positions, the matchups, and throughout I'll be giving you every trick of the trade and every tip of the dick. I don't know why I said that. Now, in doing some research for this guide to cover all my bases, despite having nearly 2,000 hours in Cassidy as a pathetic one-trick, I learned an awful lot. Specifically that every guide I checked out was giving some hilariously poor advice. I have no idea who's been writing these things, but goddamn if there isn't a deluge of piss-poor information out there. So here's some more! First off, let's quickly cover the basics. One thing to note is that Cassidy is in a health pool of his own at 275 hit points, lower than Bastion, Reaper, Mei, and an armored up Torbjörn, but higher than every other DPS in the roster. It's not much, but it's enough to make Doomfist players very pissed off. Then there's his Peacekeeper revolver. You probably already know everything about it. The only point of mention is range. 70 damage up to 25 meters away down to an abysmal 21 damage at 35 meters. Know your distances. A body shot is going to do twice as much as a fall-off headshot. Next is everyone's favorite, Fan the Hammer. If you have the confidence to headshot, then headshot. Otherwise, use it point blank against small heroes and close range against tanks. It's particularly good against tanks to barrel stuff them with the fan, roll away for the instant reload, and then go for headshots. The same combo is also great against barriers at any range where they're big enough to eat the entire fan. My only advice here is that you should try avoiding fanning, rolling, then fanning again unless you expect that second fan to be the end of the fight. That's because it takes less than 2 seconds of body shots to outdamage the 200 damage of Fan the Hammer, so without an instant reload it's suboptimal. That said, a lot of players get extremely tilted when they keep dying to Fan the Hammer, so my personal recommendation is to never pass up the opportunity to fan the flames of an impotent nerd rage. Of course, using your roll to reload can be very dangerous, and not in the way that a lot of you are probably thinking where you can use its mobility to escape lines of fire or dodge AoEs. I mean that this baby comes with a built-in 75% damage reduction for that half a second you're dodging. So that means, and I can't stress this enough, you can eat the biggest ults in the game. When that tracer comes dashing up at you, don't reactively try to roll away from the pulse bomb and hope its massive hitbox doesn't connect with yours. Eat that bomb like a hoagie, let her stick it in your mouth, wait half a second, and then roll it right back at her. You'll lose less than a third of your health. Even some of the most devastating skills in the game, like D.Va's ultimate, you can roll through. You can stare at it and roll on top of it as it explodes and it will do 250 of your 275 health total. Meaning instead of desperately rolling for cover, you can just walk in the opposite direction of it to minimize the damage, which leaves you with the unique opportunity of trying to peg D.Va while she's naked.
No way!
And because a startling number of people don't know this, my only other point of mention is that you can, and should, use your roll while airborne. Next is Cassidy's grenade. First it was the flashbang, which people hated. Then it was the magnetic grenade, which they also hated because it did too much damage. Then they toned that down and gave it hinder, and now, unsurprisingly, people hate it! It has decent damage, a huge throwing range, slow and hinder, and homing to boot. This thing's pretty great. Use it all the time on everyone. It's especially fun to whip cross-map at snipers who then won't have the movement speed to dip back into cover and you can snipe off. It's also insanely useful against blocky Doomfist trying to empower their rocket punch and hilarious for stopping Reinhardt's charge just before he plasters you. It has dozens of uses across the roster that will infuriate your opponents, but I'll delve into specifics while I go through each matchup. Then there's Deadeye, the suicide button of ultimates. Even with the 40% damage reduction that comes along with it, if you're playing with randoms, this ultimate is more likely to get you killed than anything else. And not just from direct damage, by popping this ultimate, you're essentially telling the whole enemy team that you need to be targeted immediately. And there are so many ways to counter it. Let's go through the short list, shall we? D.Va Defense Matrix, Doomfist Punch Interrupt, Mauga Cage and Stomp Interrupt, Orisa Javelin Interrupt and Javelin Spin, Ramattra Barrier, Reinhardt Barrier and Charge Interrupt, Roadhog Hook, Sigma Barrier and Rock Interrupt and Kinetic Grasp Absorb. Jesus Christ! Winston Barrier, Zarya Bubbles, Gongo Deflect, Mei Wall, Sombra Hack, Symmetra Wall, Anna Sleep, Brigitte Bash Interrupt. And that's just the main stuff. There's of course being repositioned by heroes like Lucio or Pharah, being avoided through invincibility like Reaper or Vulture, or simply getting absolutely demolished with damage like Widowmaker or, of course, Cassidy. Though, on the flip side, there are plenty of ways for your allies to help you. Protecting you with some sort of barrier would be the main one, but comboing it is the best way when you're working with random players that you can't coordinate with. High nooning into an ally's Mauga cage, or Sigma's gravitic flux, or Zarya's black hole, or Sombra's EMP are just some of the ways you could use it. Situationally, it can also be a fantastic counter after being black holed by a Zarya or lifted by a Sigma, give you damage reduction for the black hole while your allies are no doubt dropping healing, and abusing the huge range of sight offered by being lifted by gravitic flux. I could easily make an entire video about the complicated scenarios and duality of the hyper inconsistent high noon.
No mercy. What? How did Mercy not die?
But I figured that'd be way too much information for something that you're just gonna pick up naturally through trial and error. My biggest points of advice are, if you can use High Noon to safely pick off any enemy at any time, do it. If you can High Noon just to throw off an enemy setup or delay a push even without the expectation of landing a single shot, do it. If you're being pocketed and charging through the enemy team and need more bullets, absolutely smash Q and right click to cancel it for an instantaneous reload. One of the best times to use High Noon is when your opponents are relying on a barrier for cover, like forming up behind a Reinhardt. Even if it's just one guy sticking behind him, try to get some pot shots on you while you're charging. Just overcharge that High Noon long enough and your first bullet will pop that barrier and the rest will eliminate their targets. And definitely don't be afraid to just hit Q the moment you hear an enemy ult. Popping Illaris or Sigmas as they fly up into the air, sniping a D.Va while she's in her vulnerable, peggable form, and then rolling through the damage of her ultimate, or as cover fire for allies who are trapped in a black hole or freezing inside a May Blizzard. I'll list my favorite interactions like this from the matchups later in the guide, but this is a good taste of how High Noon can be used and how it can absolutely send you careening back to the spawn point with nothing to your name but a 0% ultimate charge. With the basics out of the way, as I see it, there are 3 main ways to play Cassidy: the lead, the support, or the lurker. I'll start with the fringe case first, the lurker. At the most basic of levels, he's the Cassidy who hides around a corner, and when an enemy walks by that he can essentially instantly eliminate, he goes ooga booga boo and grenade fans. Then he usually dies, but if he got a healer, that's a good trade. Of course, this is more prevalent when he still had a flashbang in his arsenal. Nowadays, it's more common to get the Cassidy that will flank, like Soldier Light. Doesn't have the same burst potential since he doesn't have Helix rockets, and he doesn't have sprint to escape or a self-heal, but what he does have is an ultimate that can absolutely devastate a team if they're not paying attention or get caught out of position. So lurking Cassidy can be useful, but it's very much feast or famine. If you do it against the right team with the right composition, you can carry the entire match. I've certainly done it. But if you do it against, say, a mindful and competent Widowmaker who's listening for your massive clodhopper footsteps, you'll be an absolute clown. For me, this is my least used playstyle, and usually when I go lurker it's because I'm forced to. Like, I'll go into a game playing standardly, hanging with the team, and then I'll take damage and pop into cover, and when you're at my level, competent supports are generally a given. Someone's probably already healing you before you even found cover, but sometimes you go into cover and you're just standing there for an awkwardly long time before you realize that no healing is coming. Which doesn't always mean incompetence. Maybe you have a pharmacy in the sky and a Kiriko or a Lucio leaping ahead with a dive tank, and you have to accept that, yeah, you're on your own. Which can be a lot of fun, don't get me wrong. Being with a competent team that's diving and causing chaos is the best time to be a lurking wildcard Cassidy. You can pop out and devastate enemy players with headshots, cut off, disable, and eliminate supports as they try to escape, and of course, land some brutal surprise high noons. Unfortunately, this isn't always the case. Sometimes you're forced to be a lurker because your supports just suck. It happens. You have a wannabe Reddit Lucio trying to make big plays by tickling the enemy team and suiciding, or one of the damage-capable supports whose only goal seems to be to try and match their DPS allies in damage using the two-pronged approach of only going for damage and then not healing their DPS players who desperately need the support. Which I think that latter one only exists so those players can then offload the blame of an inevitable loss onto a DPS who did less damage than them. I see it all the time. You'll be against an Ana or Baptiste or Illari or Kiriko who is just constantly trying to eliminate you, and it's like, okay, I'm just gonna let my support easily outheal your damage output and I'm gonna wipe out your DPS players because they have no healing. And then they'll pop off and all chat at the end of the game like, I can't believe how bad my DPS players are. I did more damage and I'm a support. And it's like, yeah, you didn't heal them, so I absolutely destroyed them before they could do anything. Of course they didn't do any damage. You were a lead weight on your team and I was happy to exploit it for an easy win. So when you find yourself in a situation with useless supports looking to blame you at the end of the game, your best bet is to lurk. This is where map knowledge and game sense is going to be paramount because, as I said, attempting this has a very real chance of making you a clown.
Reinhardt to our right? Is he trying to flank us? Yeah, Reinhardt trying to flank us on the right.
As a player who is usually hyper aware of opponent Cassidys, I'm the guy who's generally making them look like clowns. I know when they're going for one of their silly flank high noons without any support and I can just headshot them down. Simply communicating with your allies can generally shut them down. But that's where game sense comes in. When you're forced into lurking, you need to know what plays you could go for. If you should go for safe pot shots some areas with easy access to health packs, or if there's room for you to make those big game-changing offenses. This also doubles as a way to ensure your useless damage support gets nothing done, because they don't have a DPS frontline to take all the aggro. They'll just get shut down over and over by the enemy team and either smarten up and begin fulfilling their role, or double down and have the worst endgame stat line you've ever seen. But before you go out there and attempt lurking, there is one thing you absolutely need to be able to do, and that's winning a duel against every DPS in the game. If you're lurking and actually getting things done, you can guarantee that at least one of their DPS players is going to put you as their top priority. A Tracer who can rush you down, a Sombra who can ambush you, a Gongo who can dash to your position. You need to be confident in your ability to win a duel against them, or else you're going to get shut down. Honestly, unless you're a diehard Cassidy no-lifer like me, if you're not getting any support, your best bet is to just swap to a more self-sufficient hero like Soldier or a sniper who could stay out of the line of fire entirely. Cassidy is absolutely at his best when he has a competent support behind him. Which leads us to the next role, the lead. If you're watching this video, a lead Cassidy is probably what brought you here, because you saw some rooted-tootin' gun-slinging, tit-slapping Cassidy with a dedicated Mercy launched halfway up his rectum walk through an entire team like they're nothing. And honestly, they're the simplest to play by far. A lead Cassidy is only going to work if you have your team behind you. If you've got a competent Mercy who can keep swapping between damage and healing while keeping themselves out of harm's way. If you have a second support who can take up the lion's share of healing to support the rest of your team. If you've got a tank who can protect you or distract your biggest threats. If you've got a team set up behind you who want you to take the lead, all you need to do is hold W and land your shots for the most part. Obviously, there's some target priority and positioning and knowing when to push and when to delay, but that's all pretty basic stuff. If you've ever played tank, you probably innately already know how to do all that. Hell, with a competent team putting you in the driver's seat, you probably don't even need to be that aware. They're gonna be doing the heavy lifting, so you just blap 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 and they'll bail you out of whatever awful situations you keep rolling headfirst into.
You're alone there.
Yeah, one of them.
Just keep following you along.
Then at the end of the game, you pretend you did all the work. The only other variant of the lead is where you simply have a pocket. A Mercy who's there to damage boost you, but teammates who aren't so keen on supporting and letting you take all the glory. You can definitely be more aggressive with a Mercy sniffing your farts at all times, but expect to get targeted and wiped out by damage too overwhelming for your Mercy to handle. Or, more likely, expect to get dove and ignored as they molest your Mercy and you're left supportless and defenseless. Honestly, if you're in a position where you have a pocket and an uncooperative team, it's probably best to just swap to Pharah unless you're a diehard one-trick piece of shit like me. If you really want to stick with Cassidy, then you should play an extra effective support role with a superpowered revolver. Speaking of which, the support role is my personal default. I think the best way to explain it is to use the classic game Halo 3. Some people might argue that everything is fluid in Halo and everyone fulfills every role as necessary, but they'd be wrong. One of the main distinctions is between a support player and a main slayer. And I don't mean an objective player, I mean support. The delineation in Halo, at least when I played competitively, was that the main slayer was a player who hunted for every kill. Someone who cut their teeth on free-for-all before being picked up by a team, who would smell blood in the water and would always chase to convert the kill, comparable to playing lead as Cassidy. A support player, however, would be the player who lets the kills go to maintain map control, who would hold locations to do massive amounts of damage from their superior positions and force enemy players into an unfavorable spawn point, but not chase. It doesn't matter if you got an enemy to one-shot, they're hiding to get their shields back up and are effectively out of the fight. You did your job. It's not worth abandoning your position. Such is the role as Cassidy. It's not about getting eliminations, it's about being in the best place to do as much damage as possible at all times, at the right range for maximum effectiveness with your revolver while around your allies so you can peel assassins off your healers and break aggressive tank advances with a hindering magnetic grenade. For as long as your team maintains formation, you maintain it with them. And with the introduction of 5v5, this has only become easier. Your team forms around the tank. If your tank is hard diving like a Hammond or a particularly aggressive Doomfist, you form up around your supports. If your supports are diving with the tank like Lucio and Kiriko, then you need to play it by ear. If they're a big enough distraction that you can hold a solid position and drop big headshots onto the enemy team without getting picked off, do it. If you could dive in with your allies without being eviscerated and shred through big targets with hammer after hammer, do it. If you can't survive either of them, then you need to start lurking or swap hero. Support is absolutely my go-to and seamlessly transitions into either of the other positions. Just a solid middle ground where you're not chasing every big chunk of damage you do to try and finish them off, and you're always around to support your teammates. It's especially good when you're paired with another DPS like Gongo who loves diving in and out and can finish off all the leak winks you're creating. And your supports will love you so much for protecting them with your big strong Cassidy muscles that they'll send you cute little messages and line up to suck your
Huckleberry.
The final point of mention is that if Anna nano boosts you, she is forcing you to be the lead. You say yes press mommy and hold down W to shoot every goddamn thing in sight no matter how many ults they throw at you. The only other general advice I think needs to be imparted before I go into matchups is hardware, at least on PC. Sure, you can get some amazing clips with 30 FPS and high sensitivity using a pizza box as a mousepad. I used to do it back in my CS Source days ages ago, but the key here is consistency. And there's plenty of ways to set yourself up to be consistently hitting your shots. The first is FPS, and I mean frames per second, not first person shooter. Now, some people will tell you that going above 60 FPS doesn't make a difference. There will also be people who will tell you that the human eye can't see above 30 FPS. These people are what I like to call morons. Of course, 60 FPS can work fine, but I'm going to tell you a little story. I've been using a 144Hz monitor or better for at least a decade. When I upgraded to Windows 10, the moment I booted up, I thought I'd made an awful mistake. The problem? My cursor. It was moving so slowly. And I don't mean sensitivity or even frames per second. I mean that there was a noticeable delay between me moving my mouse and my cursor on screen responding. So noticeable that I immediately felt sick just trying to navigate my desktop. The connection between my hand and what was happening on screen severed by this awful delay. And I fixed it by realizing that I had reset my display refresh rate to 60 Hz, limiting it to 60 frames per second. Because frames aren't just about the smoothness of the action, they're about minimizing input lag. Something that is very handy when, say, trying to track an enemy tracer. That said, I'm sure 60 FPS is a fine benchmark to hit. Just know that going higher will only help. Put on the frame rate limiter in the options to an FPS your machine can maintain so your action is as consistent as possible. Speaking of consistency, you'll almost certainly want a lower sensitivity and a bigger mousepad. If you want some ideas on what kind of setup to aim for, check out pro player settings for games like Counter-Strike where landing shots is paramount and find something that works for you. I personally just use a G502 at 400 DPI with a big old QCK plus that I still sometimes sweep my hand off or smash into the keyboard on the other side. I'm probably a bit on the low end for a game as fast paced as Overwatch, but it works for me. Now for the meat of the guide, the matchups. This is where you're going to make mistake after mistake until finally figuring out how to approach each different hero based on each playstyle of the person using them. It's a long road, but I can definitely impart some sage advice throughout. At the end of the day, Cassidy is a duelist, and to get good at Cassidy, you need to be a master of matchups. Just keep in mind that you shouldn't be able to duel a tank outside of deathmatch unless they've really messed up. And in an effort to make this video less than a goddamn hour, I'm gonna impart only the need-to-know stuff except for the most important matchups like Gongo and Tracer. I guess D.Va's period makes her first, if you know what I mean.
Oh, creepy!
She is definitely a tank to look out for. As an ally, her defense matrix is great for protecting you during a high noon, and as an opponent, it is great at denying it. Timing a high noon right as her mech hits 0 HP is always a good idea, even if she ults out of it. You should have a good chance of nailing her in her skimpy form, and then you can roll through the ult damage. She's the only tank I'd recommend never using Fan the Hammer on, since smart ones will just toggle on their defense matrix.
D.Va is quite hurt. There it goes, nice. Arr, she blows!
Doomfist is, of course, one of Cassidy's specialties.
Cancel the sludge.
While he's fantastic at canceling our high noon, my favorite thing to do is to ult when he does. Every single Doomfist will immediately go right over top of you to take you out.
Nope! Baited and outsmarted, bitch!
Then you just cancel your ult and roll out of the way, hopefully leaving him in a tight position. Wasting is much more useful ultimate and limiting the amount of overhealth he gets, if any. Of course, the best part about this duel is being able to stop all the jumping around, but you have to stick it with your grenade after he's already blown his power block, otherwise he could just turtle up through it. The best time to stick him to get the kill is right as his block is ending, though Doomfist can cancel it early and rocket away, so it can be difficult to predict. If he's coming right at you and your grenade wants to be cooperative, you can also cancel his punch as he's rocketing towards you before he can land the blow to save your life. And if you're really spicy, you can stick Doomfist and High Noon in the window of time you have where he can't rocket punch you. That'll really piss him off.
I've come too far to...
Oh, fuck.
Ah!
I try to fuck up their mercy. Did we win? Did we win that fight?
Yep. Joker Queen is a great matchup. When targeted, save your roll for the moment when she pulls you with her jagged blade. You'll cancel the pull and most likely waste her preemptive carnage. Otherwise, you're probably dead. Now, if you're very smart or very lucky, or in the perfect position with a good enough reaction time, you can cancel her ult by sticking her with your grenade. I very rarely manage to do this on reaction. Try to be mindful of her ult and when you think she has it ready so you can interrupt it whenever possible.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that Junker Queen ult that's gonna fuck us up down this hall.
You're gonna die.
Otherwise, she's a great matchup just because of how useless she is against your High Noon. Abuse it.
No one can stop
Mauga is another good matchup. The best way to deal with him seems to be just powering through his health, and Cassidy excels at that, especially with headshots. As an ally, his ult is great to high noon into where no one inside can escape, and as an opponent it's hit or miss. Sometimes the cage barrier will make opponents overconfident and you can blast through the shield and take out the rest. I'd recommend not using your high noon against the cage though, because his only other counter is his overrun, and it's real easy to fire off your high noon before he rushes all the way over and interrupts it with a stomp. Orisa is a cunt. Well, that's not entirely true. You are rather good at headshotting her to pieces, but unless you're super aware of her cooldowns, she will absolutely destroy your high noon every time with either a javelin interrupt or negating it with a javelin spin. Best to save it for when she's out of the picture. Just make sure that you don't make the mistake of preemptively using your ult when she's rushing in to use her ultimate. If you do and she pulls you in anyway, you're dead. Instead, let her pull you in. Then you just have to take a step or two away from her as she's charging and your roll will take you the rest of the way out. Never an issue. Watch her if she blows it early and roll through it to take a quarter of the half-baked damage. My only big point of wisdom would be that if she wants to, she can just run you down and eliminate you unless you get support. Best bet is just avoid her when she's armored up and blow through her health when she's not. Ramattra is meh. His barrier is a bit annoying since it's just on a timer, unlike Sigma's where you can shoot it down and remove it from his arsenal. Don't waste your ammo on it. He's also decent at surviving high noon by either using his barrier or his block, but it's very little for protecting his team. You're also good at escaping his ultimate with your roll and slowing him down with your grenade to give space for your allies to escape. Pretty bland matchup.
Would you like to see my gun?
Yeah.
Reinhardt is pretty simple. You can cancel his charge if he's heading towards you, otherwise he'll outpace it. Save it to stop him whenever he charges you or a nearby ally. You're good at blowing through his barrier, and doing so is always a good time to use high noon, even if that means canceling it to interrupt him as he charges straight at you to stop you. As an ally, his barrier is great for getting an amazing high noon, but don't rely on randoms to do it without communication. High noon is also great for confirming the kills on a big shatter. Other than that, he's a great way to learn your range. His ult goes 25 meters, the exact distance of your fall off. So if you've been positioning yourself correctly, when he ults you can roll back and avoid it.
Is that gonna be a hammer down? Is that what he's setting up for?
If you haven't, you might be able to clear enough distance sideways to dodge out the AoE, depending where the Rein is aimed. Then you could stick him to stop the charge or high noon to force him to barrier up instead of capitalizing on whatever allies he might have caught. Roadhog is an ass. He loves hooking you because your Peacekeeper can shred through his health and you're an easy hook target. Not to mention when you're ulting, it's always extremely risky to use high noon against him because even if he hooked recently, he can delay by healing and getting his big defensive bonuses before immediately hooking you afterward. You're good at chunking through his health, he's good at instantly killing you. Play safe and work with your team. Sigma is always fun. As an ally, you can high noon behind his barrier or combo up with his gravitic flux to confirm all the kills. As an opponent, he can interrupt your high noon or block it with a barrier or absorb the bullets with his kinetic grasp, but he can't do anything about it when he's ulting. He's the only hero where you want to be hit by his ult so you can abuse the eagle eye view he gives you. Just make sure to stay out of range of his powerful left click, which can travel up to 22 meters. Otherwise, he'll target you down and be free to devastate your allies with a gravitic flux. Winston is also a really fun matchup. He's great at shutting you down, putting a barrier over you or his allies to delay your high noon or just to protect him for your left clicks, able to Tesla cannon you through it and absolutely dumpster you with his ultimate. But then again, you are amazing at getting rid of his barrier with a fan roll left click combo. And you're also amazing at chunking him when he doesn't have his barrier and capable of hindering him with your grenade so he can't jump back to safety. Your high noon is also fantastic at one-shotting his primal rage, so with the right positioning you force him to run away or die. This is a very skill-based matchup and may the better man/monkey win. One of the biggest bits of advice I can give to any DPS is that, if he's the only one targeting you with his Tesla spam and you have an Ana to heal you, don't bother strafing. Just move nice and predictably while getting spammed so she doesn't miss a heal. And to everyone who thinks that Winston is a counter to Cassidy, you're fucking stupid. Wrecking Ball is meh. You're good at chunking him when he's close by and bad after he's rolled away. You can slow him down a bit with your grenade or use it to interrupt his pile driver, but good Hammonds will position themselves well enough that your grenade will take way too long to reach him. It's certainly not something that you can rely on. You'll have to get good at figuring out his pile driver distances instead. If you should roll beforehand to get out of the radius, or if you're too close and should save it for after he's popped you up into the air. Very boring matchup with the single fun aspect that he's leaving his team ripe to be high nooned. Zarya is sort of annoying. One poorly timed bullet and you've dumped a ton of energy into her. One of the only enemies where you really have to pace your shots, not be predictable. Once you've baited out 2 shields though, you can dummy her really hard or high noon her team.
Oh, he's got bubble on him right now. She's got bubble on him now, and nice.
High noon is also decent for when you're balls deep in her black hole, giving you damage reduction to survive the suck and threatening anyone on the team who is trying to finish you and your team off. It's also a great warding measure when you're further back and your team's getting hold to try and keep them safe. Otherwise, she's just super annoying when she's bubbling her DPS and giving them a free win when you're trying to duel them. But that's just Zarya being Zarya.
Here's our guy.
Got another. That's 3 now. Oh, that tanks one. Oh!
Speaking of DPS, Ashe is a standard range matchup. Range, not ranged. As in, fight her out of your range, you should lose. Fight her in your range, you should win. Even with her coach gun to blast you two back apart, if you manage to hit a headshot, you should be able to finish her off before she can grab cover. Otherwise, you're exceptionally good at chunking through Bob's health with headshots if that's how your team wants to deal with him. Bastion is a massively team comp based matchup. Behind a shield or a bubble, he can shred through you in a second, and his grenade is excellent at nabbing you after you grab cover. Otherwise, he's the size of a barn, an easy target to shred through. When avoiding his ultimate, try to save your roll for the last strike. Better than rolling for the first two and getting led in for the final one and absolutely exploding.
Thank you.
Oh. Oh. He's dead.
Cassidy is the get good matchup, you piece of shit. But seriously, there's no real trick to it. There used to be a whole flowchart with flashbangs, but with magnets it's a whole lot less interesting. If they have a pocket, you'll have to rely on your team or abuse cover. Otherwise, good luck and let the best Cassidy, me, win.
Of course I have a McCree.
Don't worry, I'm gonna shit in his diaper. I'm gonna make him wear it.
No.
Echo is easy as long as you keep your roll off cooldown. Her biggest threats are sticky bombs that if you have your roll ready, it's like, oh no, time to roll through this damage so it does nothing. And then her focus beam can't do anything because you're well above half health. And you know, your Peacekeeper shreds through her, so no problem there.
Alright, here's my worst.
Gongo! Oh, Gongo, my old friend. You and I have had a storied history going back so many years. I'd like to take this moment to remember all the fun we had with the flashbang. A more innocent time where the game was filled to the brim with all sorts of crowd control. And oh boy did we have to do quite the dance together, didn't we, Gongo? You dash in knowing that I was going to flash you, preemptively deflecting so you could flash me instead and get an easy kill. Except you'd get too close and I'd just throw the flashbang at my feet and the AoE would catch you and you'd yell about it in all chat. Or you'd try spacing yourself and make it really easy for me to aim it so it detonated without hitting your reflect. And then half the time I'd fan you even though I could have just headshot you because I know how angry it would make you. Those truly were the days. Even when I was leggy out on satellite internet, I'd always take the time to accept the duel and, of course, win. Now it's a lot less interesting. He's the only other character apart from Zarya and her bubbles where you need to pace your shots. You don't want to be giving him any free deflect damage, especially on yourself during a duel. Unfortunately, there's no real counter anymore. If he pops deflected time with your shots and hits you, you lose. If he pops at a bad time or you pace your shots awkwardly and successfully bait it, you win. If you pace your shots too awkwardly and he goes straight DPS without using deflect, you lose. If you catch him anywhere in the midfield before he can get up in your face, you win. It's a silly fight for silly people. We used to be the most rambunctious of dueling duos, attracted to each other like magnets, where if there was a Gongo on the enemy team, it was my sworn duty to duel them. But now it's pedestrian. The only real advice I could give is that, when he ults, the slow of your grenade can make the difference. Slowing him down so he can't catch an ally or interrupting his comboing swift strike dash is long enough to put him down. It's also useful, if you know he's jumping at you, to just roll. You'll survive his opening attack, which probably would have instantly killed you, and gives you a slim chance of outspacing his massive dong sword. Just be super massively conscious of when he has his deflect ready, especially when he ults.
Oh, they blue reflect. I'm going for it.
If he uses deflect into ult, you pop your high noon 100% of the time. Even if it's just to be a lightning rod for his aggro with your 40% damage reduction, it can easily be the difference between him wiping your team and getting absolutely nothing done. It's always worth a shot. And when you're in high noon, keep in mind that if he's apart from his team, you can just make sure that he's not in your line of sight when you fire and then deal with him after. Otherwise, simply know the deflect timing so you can body him right as it ends.
There's the reflect. And fuck you! Goodbye. Got both your healers, Doomfist. What are you gonna do now? That's what I thought.
Watch that, there's the Hanzo.
Hanzo is a bit obnoxious. You want to be close to him, but you don't want to fight him without cover since he can pop Storm Arrow and spam you down. Avoid his long-range sight lines and contest him in the mid-range with cover nearby to survive his Storm Arrow. And for the love of God, don't peek when you see he's put down a Sonic Arrow. Just stay away from it unless you like eating 240 damage.
Hanzo! I knew I was risking it.
Junkrat can be fun. Certainly when he pops himself into the air, he's a nice, easy, parabolic object to snipe off, but he's usually out of your optimal range, so you won't be doing much. Easy to catch him, but he's running away with low health or leaping in to engage. The only trick to fight him is to do it at your range, not his. If you're too far, you get bounce nades all around you and you won't do much in return. If you're too close, he can instantly kill you with a concussion mine combo. Play it safe unless you have support. As for his riptire, shoot it if you can. A single shot is almost all its health, but depending on the situation, it can be impossible to hit. If it's really close, you can go for a desperation fan the hammer. Just keep in mind that rolling will save you every time as long as you don't blow it too early or too late.
A sausage roll and a battered sound. That's what I would like to have.
What the fuck just happened?
Mei is less interesting these days. Her freezing field is a good time for you to ult, whether she's your ally or not, as long as you're not trapped in the field yourself. Her wall is good at blocking your high noon while against you or lifting you for a better angle when she's with you. You can hammer through a section of her wall easily though, so use that to your advantage to save allies or hunt enemies. Her right click icicles are deadly at range, so avoid long range sight lines. And try to stray away from her close range ice hose, though even then you can easily out DPS her to win. Fill that fatty full of lead when she's within that juicy mid range. Pretty boring overall.
Pharah.
Pharah.
Far left.
Pharah is an odd one. On paper, she's food. In practice, a good Pharah can just abuse sightlines and avoid taking hits while raining down rockets. Or she could simply outrange you, staying too far away to be bursted down. Either way, just by being Cassidy, you're limiting their damage capabilities, forcing them back so you've already done your job. Of course, if they ever come to mid-range, you need to target them. Their Pharah needs to be in the back of your mind at all times because she is going to be gunning for you, especially with her ultimate. Going for some sneaky silent fall behind your team where she is guaranteed going to drop that ult right on your face before you can react. Of course, add a Mercy to the mix and things get a lot more difficult. The Pharah can be so much more aggressive as long as their Mercy is adept at staying in cover. In that case, you really do want someone helping you like another hit scan DPS or a damage boosting Mercy or a discording Zenyatta. Reaper is another simple matchup. If you let him get point blank without a roll to save you, he should win. If you're missing your shots, he should win. It's all about just hitting those headshots as he's approaching you and using your roll to put distance between you two. The only real bit of advice is that you should use your grenade early. He'll either have to Wraith to avoid it or get absolutely trucked by the slow in your headshots. And without his Wraith he has no escape, so if he still goes for the offensive, he's committing. Sojourn is another range matchup, but not quite as black and white as with Ashe. Her railgun will definitely outrange your revolver, but she has to charge up to use it. And hitting your shots within your range will devastate her, but it will also make it easier for her to charge up her railgun. Best to keep her in that 20 to 25 meters range where you can do full damage, but she can't charge up her railgun quickly. Then it's crusty old man Soldier 76.
You better keep up. This isn't a daycare.
Kids can surprise you.
And I better not be disappointed.
Kids also disappoint you.
I've still got it.
He's as boring as he is old. He can outrange us, so he could certainly be annoying as a flanker where Cassidy has no means of hunting him down. When we do catch him in range, he has sprint to break line of sight and a heal so he can get right back into the action. Our grenade can be helpful for slowing him down, but otherwise it comes down to two things: hitting your shots and anticipating his helix rockets. You eat those and you're probably dead. Luckily, they're slow enough to be reacted to, especially with a roll, and loud enough that you can hear them if he's pre-firing you as you're coming around a corner. About the deadliest place you could be for helix rockets is close up, in which case you'll probably need to anticipate them and roll preemptively. Get a feel for how much damage he needs to do before going for that one-shot helix. But if you keep him in your range and hit your shots, he's toast. The only other point I mention is that when he's using his tactical visor, he's usually running ahead to see around cover, which will be right in your range. If he doesn't have support, bob out of cover and shut him down. Sombra is fun if you can hit your shots and miserable if you can't. She 100% cannot backline you if you're hitting your shots. So many Sombras have tried and I always just headshot them down. Our Magnetic Grenade is also fantastic for stopping her when she's targeting one of her allies. Best bet is to always hurl your grenade at her the moment you hear her appear. Other than that, her hack is great for wiping our high noon, so don't use it unless you know she won't be able to hack you. If she EMPs you instead, then hey, fantastic trade.
That was a save.
Oh! Nice EMP! Bitch! I'm dead.
And if she's on your team, look to combo with her EMPs for some big high noons. My only other point would be that it's always fun to spam when you think you know where she is. Symmetra is a lot like Mei. Avoid her long range photons from far away and keep her out of that 12-meter distance she needs to beam you. Her Photon Barrier ultimate is of course great for blocking your high noon or protecting your high noon, depending whether or not she's on your team. Otherwise, your Peacekeeper is fantastic at popping your turrets. Torbjörn has the head the size of a watermelon. If you can't headshot Torbjörn, then maybe Cassidy isn't your thing. He's super easy to take down. That said, his long range headshots can be devastating, and when he's overloading, he can take you down quickly up close. So again, a range matchup except way more in your favor pretty much at all times. Tracer is half the fun of playing Cassidy and has a great ass! A talented Tracer will push you to your limits, really forcing you to not just have your aim down for the mid-range but snapshots and sweeps, memory for where she'll be recalling to, and presence of mind to where she is at all times.
She'll be coming up the right stairs in a second.
Of course, hitting her with your grenade can end the duel real quick, but hitting a talented Tracer with a thing that speed isn't exactly likely. Best to use it when catching her by surprise and when she's already blown through her mobility. At the end of the day, hit your shots and Tracer loses. Easier said than done, but that's the ultimate goal. The biggest issue is when you are hitting your shots and Tracer just avoids you. Dashing after supports when you're distracted, staying out of your range so your shots aren't nearly as deadly. Unlike a Pharah who is zoned out and having to fire rockets from miles away, a Tracer can capitalize the moment you're not paying attention. Be ready to only put 1 or 2 bullets downrange before you have to 180 to protect your supports. Just keep that roll ready because Tracer, for whatever reason, loves sticky Cassidy with her pulse bomb. Maybe it's because his mobility is limited or his hitbox is easy to connect with, or just because he's the biggest threat to her. But seriously, it's the easiest ult to eat. Let her sting you, wait half a second, and roll away from your teammates. It doesn't kill you. It barely hurts you. It's the dumbest thing that seemingly every Tracer does. Keep your roll ready and negate her ult. Venture is a fun matchup. She can definitely combo you to death in a second, but you can also ruin her day. Stickier when you know she's looking for an escape, something that she can't react to with the delay on her burrow. She'll start digging down, get stuck, and pop her right back up to get pounded. Otherwise, it's a lot of fun to play whack-a-mole when she comes shooting up out of the ground. It is an easy target when she's airborne. The only other tip I can give is that being closer to her when she ults seems to be better. Maybe it's because people just suck at her right now, but standing close to her while she's trying to land her ult on you is hilariously effective. She misses everything. Just keep in mind that she can be annoying for high noon. Burrowing to be invincible and then popping up behind you for a huge damage combo. I'd recommend blowing it or canceling it before she burrows below you, and then you can usually roll away and punish her for being so aggressive.
No.
The final DPS is Widowmaker, and by golly does she have a great ass! And she is insanely fun to headshot. I might be giving some poor advice when it comes to Widow, but I love contesting her. Just 80 spamming and bobbing my head with some crouches while she has tortoise levels of scoped in speed trying to fire back. It's great! There are, of course, great Widows that you shouldn't contest, but don't be afraid to at least try before learning your lesson. Though that's only if she doesn't have a pocket. If she's got a Mercy on her, then wait to get into mid-range to blow her away. Of course, she's great at stopping high noon, but again, I love contesting her. Just throwing it out there and putting all the pressure on her to deliver a headshot that a lot of players mess up. Just be very conscious of her ultimate and annoy her by looking like you're gonna run around the corner and then reverse just before you do so you can watch her shot whiz through the air in front of you. If you've been contesting her, she won't want to target anyone else when you can pop around at any time. Will be torn between getting baited by your corner jiggling and risking you approaching for real, or going for a different target to not waste all of her ult.
Oh, go, 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 go! You kill him! You kill him dead! You kill him.
Yeah! Dead! The first support is Ana. No one likes being against Ana. Sleep is great for canceling your high noon, and her biotic grenade is great for securing your death. That said, a lot of Anas like to try get some damage in, and it's a ton of fun blasting them away, just like Widowmaker. Of course, her nano boost is a pain to deal with when thrown onto ulting Gongos and the like, but it certainly is a rush when you get to be the star for 8 seconds and blast through opponents with your railgun bullets. My biggest bits of advice would be, if an Ana sleeps you and is super nearby when she wakes you with her grenade, roll straight at her. You'll almost always throw her off, and it gives you a great opening to absolutely devastate mommy. And when you're high nooning and don't know if she has sleep, watch for it and you can get some shots off before the dart lands, usually eliminating Ana herself. Baptiste is a great support to have on your team. His immortality field can be insanely useful for securing your high noon, and amplification matrix is fantastic for taking down targets with barely any charge up. Just keep in mind that your HUD of how far your high noon is charged on a target does not account for the matrix at all. You only need to be half charged to get an instant kill, so blow it nice and early. If he's against you, definitely don't contest him when he has his matrix up, otherwise you should be tearing through him. Brigitte is a weird one. She can advance on your high noon safely beyond your barrier and then stun you out of it with a shield bash. So don't blow it when she's too close unless you want to draw her away from her team because she's not great at killing you. Even at point blank range, you should win a duel. Illari is great. She'll pop her ultimate and fly up into the air and immediately get crushed by your Peacekeeper. Or she'll try to contest you in the mid range and get trucked. You also have a perfect weapon to snipe off her pylon if she puts it somewhere vulnerable. Though she can also sit back and outrange you, or she can use her ultimate from far back where you can't damage her enough with your fall off. High noon is always a great way to snipe her out of the sky, but otherwise it's always a good idea to just take cover and blow through her if she flies in too close. Of course, as an ally, your revolver is excellent at confirming sunstruck enemies.
Watch for Kiriko teleport in there. She is dead.
Kiriko is funny. Despite having a projectile with no fall off, she always seems to be fighting me well within my range. Technically, she can chunk you pretty hard with headshots, but even with her obscene damage, yours is better. The only trouble is she can get shots off in her Suzu invincibility and has a way faster rate of fire while inside her Kitsune rush, so hunting her is definitely situational. I'd recommend using your grenade early if you want her to blow her Suzu while you're in cover, otherwise save it for after her Suzu ends to try and stop her from swift stepping away. As an ally, she's really useful as well. She could Suzu you while you're high nooning to help keep you safe. Another pro tip is that while you're in an ally Kitsune rush, you can just hold down left click instead of trying to learn the rate of fire on the fly. And always keep in mind that the movement speed bonus can be pretty slick for motorboating around with high noon.
He's a monkey.
Oh, I'll make that monkey come.
Nice! Lifeweaver is one of Cassidy's best friends, ensuring massive high noons by lifting him for an eagle eye view, life gripping him for invincibility or as a sun reposition, even dropping his tree for the defense and healing. On the flip side, that tree, ally or enemy, can be quite the massive bit of cover for enemy players to use against high noon. One thing I can say for sure is that if you have a good friend playing Lifeweaver, you will do amazing things together.
I'm gonna pull you
Don't
this
you
time.
fucking do it.
I'm gonna do it. This is gonna be huge.
What? You ruined it!
Lucio is an absolute menace and easily your biggest counter. Nah, I'm just kidding. That's just what every Reddit Lucio out there wants to think. In reality, just hit your shots and you poop on him so hard. If you're losing to Lucio, it just means that your accuracy isn't quite there yet. Other than that, his drop the beat is great at ruining your high noon one against you and a great way to guarantee a high noon one with you. Just be mindful of his boops because you don't have the best mobility, obviously most of all when you're high nooning. Pay attention to where he is and don't get bopped off an edge. And yes, if he's ever zooming around in a faraway spot with no cover, just high noon him. Eliminating a support, even a useless Reddit Lucio support, is always worth it.
Nice pocket, bitch! Woohoo!
Mercy is Cassidy's best friend. Some would argue that Pharah or Ashe or Sojourn is a better partner for her, and, well, they'd be right. But that doesn't stop Cassidy from being a rootin' piss-spittin' Team Duncan cowpoke with his nuclear revolver when he has the chance. She's also fantastic for reviving you when you make one of the dumbest plays imaginable and absolutely shit the bed. On the flip side, you're one of the best heroes for dumpstering her when she's on the enemy team. Able to snipe her off as she's dashing to an ally with Guardian Angel unless she's really good at dodging. And blow her head off her shoulders when she's reviving an ally. I very much enjoy taking out a key member of the opposing team and just waiting for Mercy to come in for a revive and plowing her. Moira is food. Super easy to kill. Magnet grenades are her bane, even when she's ulting. If she uses her Fade to dive in, you should have her dead in seconds. If she tries to fight you with her Fade ready, force her to blow it with a grenade. Either she stays and fights and loses because you can trash her, or she runs away. A few special Moiras will just take the grenade and try to heal through it, but that never works out well for them in my experience. Just shoot them while they're walking in quicksand, tickling you with their feather grip. Zenyatta is like a balloon that you can easily pop! If he has Discord on you, take cover until it's forced to expire. Don't try to engage him from super long ranges, and listen for the charge up of his orbs when he's setting up for an alt fire. When he pre-fire peeks looking for an instant kill, just roll to get a better angle and snipe him off before he can float back into cover. His ultimate is also a great time to use high noon on both sides. As an ally, he can keep you alive and even float in front of you as a body block. If he's an enemy, he'll likely pull all his allies out of cover toward him, thinking that they're invincible, and then you can one-shot them with high noon. Keen viewers might have noticed that I didn't list any of Cassidy's counters on this list. That's because you'll need to subscribe to the next video where I'll cover his counters in depth just as soon as Blizzard develops a counter to Cassidy. Cassidy. And now with all the goddamn filler out of the way, I need to cover maybe the most important part of this build, the cosmetic tier list. His best spray, the Wanted Dead or Alive poster. His best voice line, the sure as hell ain't lucky line except you cut it off after he says,
I'm not good.
with a sorry or with
I'm your huckleberry.
souvenirs are homosexual. Charms are heterosexual. The flashbang victory pose has a wink that will make you instantly come. Emotes are for people who like to get shot by Cassidy. He doesn't have a bad highlight intro, but rolling into action will always be the best for the fucked up distorted face he gets. And for the best skin, that's right, it's Florida Mayhem 2018. Did I mention that this video is sponsored by McDonald's? Just remember that you can't spell I'm loving it without vomit. But my personal favorite Cassidy is the one that had an insane rate of fire buff back in Overwatch 1 where I could just walk through a whole enemy team.
Try to kill baby D.Va before she gets it back. Where is she?
Wasn't that great? Why don't we bring that Cassidy back? Now, as a final bit of actual advice, stay warmed up. And by that I mean shoot at stuff all the time. When I'm waiting in spawn or making my way out on defense, I just choose random targets and shoot them. It's one of the best things that Overwatch has over games like Counter-Strike. It's so easy to have your shot degrade when you're just camped out in a bomb site waiting for the enemy team to make their play. In Overwatch, you can constantly be shooting, both when you're in a match and just jumping into the practice range or a deathmatch while queuing. Fuck your accuracy stat. Shoot at stuff even when you're just returning to the front line, unless you have to stay alert for a Sombra or something. Who cares what your accuracy stat says if at the end of the day you're popping heads and winning games? And I hope this guide helps you do just that. Unless you're against me, or on my team. Don't take Cassidy from me, you shitheads. It's the one thing I have left. She took everything in the divorce.
Clams and oysters and camping.
Do you have a clam?
Yeah.
No.
Well,
Katie did that with her.
she's gonna. Oh. Oh.
The one pet that got away.
You. Stop. Open your mouth.
Stop making that laugh.
It's disgusting.
Don't laugh like that.
It sounds like you've got your mouth full.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. For anyone who wants the TLDR version, shoot them in the fucking head.